Okay, we are off the record for a Friday and certain things that are just absolutely mad. And it's no wonder we're all having trouble with certain things. So a couple of things in this video, no particular order, just a little bit of my own personal thoughts on these things. So do subscribe if that's what you like here. This is a little bit more rough and ready than my main channel. So thank you for joining me. So let's take a look first of all and what we have in store for the first installment. This is about the NHS and their non-implementation of the Supreme Court ruling in For Women Scotland, which ruled, shock horror, that men and women are to be treated per their biological sex under the Equality Act. I'll come back to the Act in a moment. I'll also come back to what the EHRC said about it and what service providers should do. But I'm going to show you what the NHS here said that they were doing about it. Spoiler, they're just going to wait around for a bit and not implement it, is what they said in this video, but I'll show you in just a second. And furthermore, why I say the Supreme Court ruling was absolutely crystal clear, and we really shouldn't be debating this anymore. So a brief overview of what the Supreme Court decision meant and what service providers absolutely must do following this ruling. Now, there are some situations where service providers must provide separate spaces for men and women. That is, if they are providing it for their employees, then they have to provide separate spaces for men and women. Those are under employment guidelines and such. And if, as a service provider, they are providing services to members of the public, they may separate by sex, if they feel that it is necessary to do so to avoid arguments of discrimination, or whether it's just right to do that, they can choose to provide separate sex services. And that includes bathrooms and changing rooms and all sorts of other things that might be separated on sex. Sex having its biological meaning under the Supreme Court ruling and obviously therefore under the Equality Act. The Supreme Court ruling didn't change any law, it just clarified what the law meant. Now, here's the real deal here, and this is the crystal clear ruling from the Supreme Court. If a service provider provides services, which includes bathrooms, toilets, changing rooms, and everything else, if they provide them based on sex, i.e. those for women and those for men, then they must be separated based on biology, because the Equality Act says that it would be discrimination to treat any person with a protected characteristic less favorably, directly or indirectly, because of that protected characteristic, which includes sex. So, therefore, it follows very simply, if a service provider, let's say a shop or a restaurant or whatever else, a cinema, doesn't matter, if they provide a bathroom, and let's use the women's bathroom by way of example, because that is what most people get upset about. If we use the women's bathroom and say, that is for women to use. If they allow a biological man into that space, that could be to say a trans woman who is a biological man with or without a GRC, a gender recognition certificate as provided under the Gender Recognition Act 2004. Regardless of all that, if they allow them into the women's bathroom, then they are, in my view, going to be treating the women less favorably in that situation, because they've allowed a biological male into that space. They have therefore failed to uphold the dignity, the privacy, the segregated sex space that they've provided for those women. And as it happens, the reverse would be true as well. The entire reverse situation would be true. I get the impression online, you can let me know what you think in the comments, I get the impression online from the general commentary that men are somewhat less bothered about a trans man, that is to say a biological woman going into the men's bathrooms. That men typically seem to be less bothered about that than women might be in the reverse, because let's just look at this for what it is. Women would probably not, I think, would probably not want to go to the bathroom or get changed if there's a biological man in there, whereas men don't seem that bothered. Some men might be bothered. Let me know what you think in the comments below, but either way round, that could give rise to a discrimination claim, directly or indirectly, depending on how the policy is worded and depending on how they implement it and so on. All of those things. So if they fail to protect it, or if they make it a clear policy that you can use the bathroom which you identify with these could all cause problems for the service providers. The Supreme Court ruling made it absolutely clear that sex is based on biology, and I'll show you that in a minute. But before that, I started this video to say this is why I think things are all a little bit mad. With all that in mind, this is the NHS commenting on such a thing. I'll try and mute myself so I don't create any echo, but he was given questions to answer, one of which related to the Supreme Court ruling, and this was the response. And for reasons which will become clear, I'm going to come back to the EHRC guidance in just a moment. Have a listen to this.
Yeah, so the first one is around a question around the Supreme Court ruling on biological sex, which happened in April, and the question is around what is NHS England doing about this, and I think just to say that we are reviewing our relevant policies and procedures to make sure that that is aligned with the ruling, but we do need to wait for the EHRC, which is the Equality and Human Rights Commission, to update its code of practice for services, functions and associations, which will set out the legal framework of how services are delivered in line with the Equality Act, and we need that available before we can make final decisions about national policy. So the updated code of practice will be published shortly, subject to parliamentary approval, and we will therefore, once that has been done, update the guidance and publish that.
So do nothing and wait for the EHRC to produce guidance so that they can comply with the law. Now, this is not legal advice, but I can tell you that that's nonsense. With great respect, that's nonsense. You're supposed to comply with the law as and when it is published. So if a judgment is made, even if you haven't got the physical court order in front of you, as soon as the judge has said it, it becomes law, it becomes binding. So the Supreme Court ruling in For Women Scotland that sex is based on biology became ruling the moment that they declared it so. And in any event, saying that they are waiting for the EHRC guidance is also, with great respect, nonsense, because the EHRC said that while we work on revising the code of practice, which is ongoing, duty bearers such as services that are providing services and have a duty to comply with the law should take appropriate legal advice where necessary. Now, if I were advising, this is not legal advice, but if I were advising, I would say you have to comply with the law, meaning if it's a men's and women's segregated space, you should apply that and enforce it. That's what my advice would be. The EHRC said, whilst we're updating the guidance and the code of practice, you should take advice and where necessary, in relation to all aspects of compliance with the Equality Act 2010 and other relevant law. This includes matters referred to in the interim update, which is for information only. They say further down, my next bit it highlighted. We know that many people have questions about the judgment, what it means for them. Our updated guidance will provide further clarity. While work is ongoing, this update is intended to highlight the main consequences of the judgment. Employers and other duty bearers must follow the law and should take appropriate specialist legal advice where necessary. That, to me, is as clear as the Supreme Court ruling is. And they go on to provide key information. And the key information is just as clear. The Supreme Court ruled that in the Equality Act 2010, sex means biological sex. A woman is a biological woman or a girl, a person born female. A man is a biological man, or a boy, a person born male. If somebody identifies as trans, they do not change sex for the purposes of the Act, even if they have a GRC. Trans woman is a biological man, a trans man is a biological woman. The judgment has implications for many organisations, including workspaces. Services that are open to the public, such as hospitals, shops, restaurants, leisure facilities, etc. In relation to workplaces, which is what I said about employers having a duty to their employees, these require suitable and sufficient facilities to be provided, including toilets and sometimes changing facilities and showers. Toilets, showers and changing facilities may be mixed sex where they are in separate room, lockable from the inside. Where changing facilities are required under the regulations and where it's necessary for reasons of propriety, there must be separate facilities for men and women, or separate use of those facilities, such as separate lockable rooms. Bearing in mind, for clarity, Men and women means biological men and biological women. This could not be clearer. I've been clear in my videos. Some people are saying that it's not too clear. There's multiple interpretations of this and different ways that it could apply. No, there aren't. If you are biologically male, you use the men's facilities and vice versa. That is just one reason that I think there's a lot of confusion around at the moment. And if that wasn't bad enough, we get stories like this one from the EU. Now, I've always had my beef with the EU laws right since I did my LLB, and to a lesser extent when I did my master's in law whilst doing bar school. But I've always had an issue with it because there are some quirky laws that have come out of the EU. There's the bendy banana story, which is not entirely as straightforward as people always think it is, but it did ultimately mean bendy bananas are regulated more than, those that have an abnormal curvature and whatever. Also, the rulings that drinks manufacturers cannot label bottles of water to say that it stops you from being dehydrated and things like this. All sorts of weird little things which I've had some objection to, I'll be quite honest. And whilst doing the law degree, it drove me a bit mad. So with that in mind, I'll show you this story here. I've not looked into the law fully yet. We're just on my Off the Record channel, so we're always going to get some smarty in the comments saying, you're commenting on something before you've really looked into it. Yeah, I'm saying so. I'm commenting on news stories. That's what I do sometimes. Children, under this new proposals by EU, children will be able to choose their own gender at any age. Now, with great respect to all concerned, I mean no disrespect to anybody. I don't mean to insult anybody who is trans. I speak to a lot of people who are trans. They email me. They actually thank me for the clarity in my videos and support where I offer it, where it is warranted. We should never be disrespectful and hateful and hurtful to anybody, regardless of how they identify and whatever. And I am not, and I make clear that I am not in this video or in any other video. However, this is nonsense. A child cannot choose their own gender. It is just something that is a recipe for disaster here. Proposals laid out in the European Commission equality strategy have been condemned for silencing women. EU member states who challenge gender ideology could be punished with discriminating regions that do not comply with values, seeing funding blocked. So they are really going to look at blocking funding because they don't sign up to what is ultimately a philosophically challenged belief. That is absurd. It's utterly absurd. And just to back this up, I mean, this is prevalent. I mean, to some extent, it feels like a lot of the world is becoming clearer and ironing out these kind of things. And yet we have here leader of the Green Party, Zach Plansky, with Piers Morgan. Get a load of this.
Can a woman have a penis?
Yes. It's going to take them a long time on the National Health Service to get rid of it, but that's another separate problem.
All right. I think we'll leave it on a woman can have a penis. People can
I think you're lacking nuance and complexity about a pretty complicated
Not really. You couldn't have been clearer.
I'm clear because actually when you want to look at the science...
You were crystal clear. Ask a simple question.
But you're laughing at it, which I think demeans trans people.
Absolutely ridiculous.
What have you got against trans people? Why are you punching down? Why are you not saying...
Nothing against trans.
Now I'm going to jump in and challenge this because anytime, as Zach did here, anytime anyone says anything about men, women, and the comparison with trans people, they always seem to say that, as he put it there, you're punching down and so attacking trans people. It's always seen as an attack, and it's not. It is simple clarity on biology. Men and women, based on biology, born male or female, save for intersex, where there is a genetic difference in the way some people are born, either born with both genitalia or born with an additional chromosome or some sort of birth defect. This is, from my understanding, this is a birth defect. It is not how people are supposed to be born. Without any disrespect, it's not how people are supposed to be born. But otherwise, you're born male or female. If you identify, if in your mind you feel female, but you're born as a biological male, that is, it's very sad and very unfortunate. And it does lead to those people leading a very difficult life because they will feel that they are trapped in the wrong body and so on. That I completely accept. I completely respect. Just in exactly the same way as if somebody is gay or bisexual or whatever, I have complete respect for that. I have no criticism of that whatsoever. But to use this whole debate to then for Zach then to say Piers Morgan is punching down and attacking trans people because he is speaking clearly about biology, that is just a false flag argument. It is utterly absurd, and I don't accept that. Speaking of things that I don't accept, a bit of a roundup, I suppose, whilst we're here on digital ID. I've done a few videos on digital ID now. You've probably heard me if you've watched my main channel long enough and you've seen my videos when I was in China, they do digital ID in China very well. They, for the most part there, people like it. It works well. It is integrated well. It does allow them all of these benefits that Keir Starmer is going on about. So I can see that there are positives when it's implemented properly, but there is a huge but that does come at the expense of personal privacy and liberty at times, and it comes at the expense of being free from state oversight, overreach, and spying into every aspect of your personal life, which is what I believe this government would do. Now, if our government here were to implement it, first of all, I think it's at huge risk of being hacked and breached and leaked and so on. I've read a couple of reports that I'm going to look into that say it's already, the prototypes which were already in progress have already been hacked. I'm yet to verify all of that, so I'm going to look into that and I'll come back on that. But it wouldn't surprise me. I think it's a question of when, not if, that happens. And in any event, it's been missold to you. It's been sold to you as an idea that it's going to stop migrants. But even the head of Calais says this is not going to happen. He says it will not resolve the channel crossings. They say that the plan was expanded so it could access tax records and all sorts of stuff. They, believe me, they're going to use this for any nefarious purpose possible. And furthermore, in my main video, I talked about where they might be using it to restrict access, or they say allow easier access to your money and making payments. But it's a very, very thin slither between allowing easier access to your money and making payments and restricting access to money and payments. Now, a little bit of a story on this one. Here's how this might play out, because I changed my phone recently. It's the orange one, but I've now got a black case to go with it. I like the black and orange look. So I did upgrade. I wasn't going to, but I did upgrade my phone. And so obviously I had to transfer my banking apps from one phone to the other, but I did it by the iPhone switch from one to another, which did everything seamlessly, save for certain apps that you have to log into. So in effect, it created a clone of my previous phone on this one, and it operated, even looks the same. The layout's the same, everything. It's quite smooth, to be fair. It took about an hour to fully transfer. But then I had to log into various things. So logging into Google, logging into YouTube, all fine. We have additional security profiles that we get signed certificates for, and we download it. So there's additional security features on the phone because it's a Google Workspace account. But all that aside, then it came to logging into the banking apps. Now, because I tried to log in from a new phone, the banking app, I won't name them just yet. I might at some point, but the bank in question said, you've changed your phone. So actually, it didn't even tell me that. I just couldn't log in. I had to get my ID to try to log in, to try to verify me. I used my passport to try to verify myself to log in. It just said something went wrong. So I tried it again, something went wrong. Tried it again, something went wrong. I left it an hour or so. Tried it again, something went wrong. Just wouldn't work. So I got onto their chat support, verified myself there, ironically enough, verified myself for the chat support. Then they spent about 20 minutes talking about it and eventually said, have you updated your phone or whatever recently? I said, well, as it happens, yes, maybe I should have said so at the beginning. I didn't think it was necessary, but yes, it's a new phone. And they said, well, because you've changed phones, we've blocked your account access on mobile for 7 days. 7 days. They blocked me from accessing my own bank account just because I changed my phone. Now, this might be a security feature. It's a bit of a stupid one, really, because I bought a new phone and I transferred it. And just because I'm logging into a new phone, that sounds a little bit sort of heavy-handed to me. I mean, we're grateful for the security when it's necessary, but it stopped me logging into my phone for a week, even though I was able to contact them and verify myself and say, it's me. I am trying to log into a second phone on this account. And it wouldn't let me. I had to wait 7 days. Now, as it happens, I have no debts. I had no major payments that had to go out of that account. But had I, missed rent, missed mortgage payments, or all sorts of other things, it could have caused me lots of trouble. And that's just because I changed my phone. Now, imagine what could happen if you say something wrong online, or you're accused of something. You're accused of fraud, or you're accused of benefit fraud, or something else, and they decide that through digital ID they restrict your access to your money. This is where this could be going. What are you going to do then? And that's not even counting if it gets hacked and breached, and then all of your data is leaked and available to hackers. This is utterly horrendous. There was another story I'm going to look into where this happened in India, where millions of people's records were sold online for a nominal sum because it had been hacked and breached. So all very strange. But that is the roundup on why I think these things are absolutely mad just recently. Just my views, airing my views. We're on Off the Record. Please do subscribe. And I've got some more coming on the Money channel. That is Daniel Shinsmith. I'll link that below. Hop over there because we are being given warning after warning. And I think this government is deaf to those warnings. Catch me on there. Check out my main channel video. Went live earlier today. I'll link that below. Thank you for watching here. I'll see you in the next one.